Hogstye.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hogstye. It is the dynamic duo this week. It's just Steve and I doing the show. We have a lot to talk about with this football team. It's kind of nuts. That's good news, Steve. Thank you for that little note.
I'm having technical issues here.
Yes. Steve had to do like a half-hour update on his computer, which
I
he
didn't.
hates.
It forced me to, and I
Yes.
tried. Look, if anybody out there is an IT guy, tell me how to turn Windows updates off, and don't give me this line about you really need the updates. I don't care and I don't want them. So tell me how to make it stop forever, because I keep trying and it keeps turning itself back on.
You know, Steve, we technically have an IT guy who writes for us. And I don't mean me, because I'm AV.
You're talking about
AV are the
Tampa.
dumb version of IT. Like we get to play with fun toys like cameras, but we are definitely dumber than IT people.
Now the problem with no one from Tampa, of course, is as his namesake indicates, he's in Tampa right now, so he's not really available to answer questions about.
Yeah, he's been tweeting. He's sent at least 10 tweets to me today.
Oh, has he? Okay,
yeah.
Well, tell him to get
I don't
off
know
his
what
butt
he's up
and
to.
fix my computer then.
Yeah, well, since you mentioned him, and it kind of just rolls
to anybody down there in Florida. By the way,
I'm seeing some videos from there.
I have a hurricane pass over my house, a Cat 4 hurricane, so I understand what you're going through.
And the storm surge images that I'm seeing so far from those close to the coastline, it is
it's terrible.
Joke.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah. I mean, down here in Houston for Harvey, what we ended up having was the wettest storm in American history. That's what we had.
I know it very well because obviously, I had family down there too. I hope that any fans we have who are down there got out and didn't think to ride it out, because that would have been a stupid thing to do.
Look, I have ridden storms out. The one I did not ride out was Hurricane Ike, which at one point looked like it was a Cat 5 coming straight at Galveston Bay.
Right.
And ended up being a Cat 3 when it hit land, but it was very dangerous. And that one I rode out. I've ridden out 3 or 4 of them, but it depends on kind of the winds. If it's real serious, I'll leave.
Sure.
Like we left. I was afraid we were gonna have this house destroyed.
Yeah. And look, I think anyone with common sense knows, like, when those wind numbers get really up there, it could tear down any house. Just about.
I wasn't afraid for Harvey about the winds. It was the water for that, and I just gambled because that's me. But
but this is a wind one that people are worried about.
That's like me and Ike. Yeah, don't do that.
Because
I have a house. My house is hurricane proof, and so we're good up to like Cat 3. But I mean, above that would be bad.
Yeah, and this one was Cat 4 when it hit. So that's one thing. We can tie it back into the NFL very easily, because I just saw this on NFL.com. The Tampa Bay Bucks were supposed to host a home game this weekend. They're still not saying for sure if they're going to move it, which I think is just
insane. Yeah, just do it now. Yeah,
just say it's going to move. So the Bucks are going to play the Chiefs. Here's the thing that's weird to me. They're moving it all the way to the Minnesota Vikings Stadium, which, Steve, I don't know geography. I don't know how far away that is exactly, but I do know that is pretty much from the bottom of the country to the top.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, I agree. But we're down to 16 available stadiums, right? Because the home games, the teams with they're playing home games, you can't already take those.
And I didn't look at that full list.
Yeah, and then you're down, any stadium has a concert, a circus, some event. And so you got to figure down a couple there at a minimum, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be a few more that they just can't pull off the legalities of it in time. So realistically, there's probably, a handful they could have picked. So I can get why there's a limited selection for those reasons, but surely there's something better in Minnesota. My goodness. I mean, Tampa and the Chiefs, and you're going to go to Minnesota?
So, no one's doing anything in the Washington Stadium.
Yeah, that'd
obviously.
be one of them, right?
Right.
And of course,
And
then you
I'm
got to
sure
go
Dan
pay
Snyder would
Dan.
love to actually have a stadium where people show up.
But this is one of these things where there's issues because the NFL does not want to pay Dan Snyder right now. Most
True.
likely, they don't want to boost him, and so I would probably not do that. You know,
Fair. What about Houston? Does Houston have a home game?
I don't know here. Well, my things are waking up on the computer front now, Alex.
Okay. All
We're
right.
getting better here. So yeah, we'll run through the schedule real quick, shall we?
Yeah,
And,
yeah. I can pull it up here too.
okay.
All right. Dolphins are at the Bengals tomorrow.
So Miami's free, but that's out obviously because
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
Hurricane Central.
The Vikings are on the
Check the
road at
Falcons.
Saints. So that's why they didn't do New Orleans, because the Vikings are playing in New Orleans. Oh no, wait. That's the London game. They could have played it in New Orleans, in theory.
Well, New Orleans is also somewhat near the coast, but I mean, it seems like that would be okay for sure. I mean,
Right. Seahawks.
what about Atlanta?
I'm scrolling through. Atlanta's hosting a game on October 2nd. Oh no, wait.
Okay.
Is that the right week? Is it October 2nd already? Wow.
Yes. Okay, so Atlanta's out. So then you got the Panthers, Carolina.
Yeah. I'm scanning. Where are the Panthers? Are they off or what's going on here? I don't. Oh no, Panthers are hosting it. Okay, so that makes sense. If the Panthers are also hosting one, that makes sense that they're out.
What about the Texans?
Texans are hosting the Chargers.
Texans are hosting it. So there's nobody in the South.
Right.
And so now you're up to maybe the
like Tennessee, maybe,
the Cleveland Browns.
Browns are at the Falcons. Tennessee is at the Colts, so you could play it in Tennessee.
Yeah, but who knows? I mean, there may be, a Taylor Swift concert. I mean, I'm making stuff up, but I mean,
sure.
Who knows?
I mean, Tennessee is kind of Nashville is kind of a music venue, right? So there probably are a lot of concerts at that stadium.
There could be, yeah. But anyway, so you get the point. I mean, the point is, if you really start to look at it,
right,
there aren't as much as you might think, because like maybe the Seahawks aren't home, but
right,
you don't want to go to Seattle, and so at least the Vikings is at least Midwest. It's not too awful because you got to eliminate all the Florida teams. We just said it's the only one that makes sense would be the Saints, the Superdome, but again, maybe they couldn't pull it off,
Right. Yeah, because the Saints are playing at 9:30 a.m. But again, that's the London game. So even though they're hosting, they're not really hosting. Yeah, it's just weird to me that they would go all the way to Minnesota. Like, now, what if, just hypothetically, what if they were to? Let me pull it back up for a second. Is New England hosting a game? Are they at home this weekend?
Well, that'd be fun. A long way. That'd be farther than Minnesota.
You think New England's further for Tampa than Minnesota?
It's a lot farther for the Chiefs.
Well, sure, it's farther for the Chiefs, but they're not the home team technically. I don't see. Is New England off already? What's going on? Oh well.
I don't know. Who cares? But point is, there's a limited. They have to kind of scramble, and that's the point.
Yeah. I get the scramble factor, and maybe you just call all 32 teams, say who's available.
Well, see, I mean, part of it is, I would think this part I've not done before. Okay, I mean, they don't call outside counsel for stuff like this, but it may be a lot easier to deal with for stadiums that are privately owned and not owned by some government, a single purpose quasi governmental owned entity or something. Who knows? But if you could just pick up the phone and call Dan Snyder, not that they would, but that would be,
right. I think you are absolutely right that they probably, even if Dan Snyder were to say, yeah, we're available, they would say, no, we're not. You're not involved in this.
I know they go, Danny, just go back to the yacht. That's what they're gonna say.
Yeah. By the way, because I follow that Dan Snyder yacht tracker, one of the planes flew out to the yacht this weekend. Or today. So
who's on the yacht? I mean, is it Danny?
I don't know, but so here's what happened, because I was following the yacht tracker, and it's fun to see because they track the yacht and the airplanes.
Oh, they do. They track the airplanes.
Yes. You I know you don't want to be on Twitter. Maybe I'll just, like, if I see an interesting thing on Dan Snyder's yacht tracker, I'll send
me a link
screenshot
to it. Yeah.
And send it to you.
do something. Yeah.
So both the planes flew up to New York separately, which is interesting. Like, why would you fly both planes up separately hours after each other? And then one plane flew to the yacht in the Mediterranean. So something's going on.
I mean, I really want to know. I mean, is he spending this much time on the yacht, or is it like his people, or is like Tanya doing it maybe because she didn't
Maybe
want to
his
be around
kids.
him?
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how old his kids are now, but they're probably
Well, we
fairly.
know the son's in college because he's playing like college football at some Division two school or
And by the
Division
way, I
three.
refuse to believe that that's a thing.
What?
Dan
That
Snyder did not produce a college football player. I just
n-
don't believe it.
no, I think Tanya Snyder may have, but
She's a model. She's not an athlete.
athletic build maybe.
And Dan's like realistically, Dan's
Right.
what 5'6" maybe,
Yeah, sure.
and very unathletic.
Fair to say from what
Yeah,
we've seen of him.
Tanya certainly looks like she might have been more athletic, her body type,
Comparatively speaking, yes.
but she's still just a model.
I mean, Steve, you've seen me. I think I look more athletic than Dan Snyder, comparatively speaking.
Well, yes, and you have a little bit of size too. You're at least
Yes.
Have some.
I'm
height.
average height.
He's a shrimp.
Yeah.
Well, you're above average. If you're 6 feet tall, that's well above average,
Yeah.
Alex.
Yeah. Okay. I'm 5'11", really. I'd say 6 feet. I round up.
I'm proud to be 5'8". Okay, I'm
Yeah,
5'8" and a half. I round down. I do. I round down.
Yeah. So I mean, I assume it's not a big school. I can't remember what school it is off the top of my head that Dan Snyder's son plays for, and I think he plays tight end, which is wild.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just
Yeah.
guessing this kid is the beneficiary of Danny making some gigantic donation to the athletic department.
I think so too. Or maybe there's some stem cell research that was done at some point that I don't know about.
Stem cell research.
Yeah. Hey, I was reading a weird article about dudes during the pandemic who had leg bones replaced to make them taller. Like, this is something rich jerks were doing to make them more tall.
Can you imagine, like, you're 5'8" and then you roll in a week later, you're 6 feet tall? That's
right,
crazy.
Exactly. That's what these guys are doing.
You know what they're compensating for if you have to add 4 inches of height.
Oh, yes, I think we all know. I think it's
just
4 inches they can't add elsewhere.
Just be satisfied with yourself. Thank goodness.
just love yourself for who you are. There's nothing wrong with that mantra in life.
And look, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with.
And love yourself.
To quote a classic rock song. And it really is inapplicable. I just wanted to.
No. We're just putting out random quotes at this point.
I know.
Okay, let's talk about the game, I guess.
Yes.
I guess we have to. Washington takes another severe beating that is so reminiscent of the beating they took the week before. It's creepy that you get shut out and your defense allows 22 points in week 2 and then 24 points in week 4.
It's also remnant of the Monday Night Massacre from a few years ago.
Yeah.
That the Redskins put up. Okay,
Yeah.
So I have not this year been doing a full stat thing that Alex knows. I went way over the top with stats.
Yes.
But this game was so awful.
Yeah.
That I did take some halftime stats.
Well, they were awful. They were so bad it was amazing.
Here they are. Passing. 3 for 10, 24 yards gross passing yards.
Right.
Rating of 39.6. 6 sacks for 40 yards, which is negative 16 passing yards.
Yes. So your net, negative 16.
Yes. And rushing, they were 12 for 66 as a team at halftime, 5.5 yards per carry. And so for those of you
doing that's not bad rushing wise.
Well, for those of you doing math at home, that puts us at 50-yard net yards at halftime. And now comparatively, so I didn't write it down, but comparatively speaking, the Eagles were at something like 250 yards.
Yeah.
In that range.
Yes.
And then but yeah, so this is what I wanted to get at, really. Antonio Gibson 6 for 35, 5.8 yards per carry. J.D. McKissick 2 for 8. Curtis Samuel 2 for 15.
Yeah. He started out with that really nice run to start.
Let me ask you, this is a difficult question, Alex, okay?
Sure.
So put your thinking cap on. Negative 16 66. If you're trying to go positive, what number is better?
I'm gonna say the number that doesn't have the little negative dash in front
That's
of
what I
it.
would say too.
Usually, yeah.
So the question for me when I'm watching this game is two things, really three things. One, why the hell doesn't Carson Wentz get rid of the ball sooner? He caused half those sacks.
Yes, he was double pumping into sacks. Yeah,
he was, and the offensive line looked like just dog doo-doo. We'll get to that.
yeah.
But the second question I'm going through my head is, your running game was miraculously working, comparatively speaking. Why didn't you get back to that? And the other thing is, you've been harping on Scott Turner. I've kind of not really defended him, but I haven't really bashed him along with you.
Yeah.
But this dude has no ability to adapt at all. I mean, you see what's happening. Short passes, dude. Screen passes, passes to the flats. You got Curtis Samuel out there. Use him. Don't. I was.
You have two running backs who are technically receivers as well.
I mean, I don't. I think this was his worst performance. Turner, I'm talking about, as a coordinator. You just let it happen over and over and over again. Granted, you have a sucky offensive line. You blame Ron for that as the GM, but it doesn't matter. Here you are. So why didn't you go to a short passing game? Why didn't you go to a running game?
I mean, look, I'm no Scott Turner fan. I don't think I've hidden that.
Oh.
It's amazing how bad he has been at adjusting. And look, I'm going to admit I was wrong about something. I thought him moving out of the booth and to the sideline this year would be a good thing. I thought that the problem with, in my mind, a guy who calls plays in the booth is he's not in touch with what's going on with the players. So he's going to have trouble adapting to if his quarterback sees something or, the lineman comes and says, hey, they're, queuing in they're teeing up on this signal that we're doing. We got to change it. Like that kind of real-time information, I think, is much easier to get when you're on the sideline. He is not getting anything on the sideline. And now, since he's down there, clearly he has no idea what's actually going on. He needs to be back up in the booth, able to see the whole field so he can adjust a little better. Not that he was good at it before, but it's just gotten worse.
Yeah, and to be fair, most offensive coordinators are in the booth, so I would think it's more of a Turner problem than like a booth or sideline problem.
I mean, I think there are plenty of guys who are better one or the other. I've always just been more partial to guys being on the sideline because, to me that just makes more sense.
I don't know. I mean, you can kind of see better up there, but I don't know if I agree with you, but we're not going to read all these stats because everybody knows their stats are sucky.
I mean,
it was
4 minutes 4 minutes left in the third quarter before they had a positive passing yard number again.
Yeah, I know. Again, at halftime they were at net negative.
Right. So, but I'm just saying, it took them another 10 minutes to get that negative 16 to +2.
Two more things about stats.
Yeah.
Number one, Terry McLaurin ended up with over 100 yards, and if anybody didn't realize that. 6 receptions, 102 yards. The reason is he had the one long catch, the 45 yards.
No, but he also didn't catch a ball till the third quarter.
I know. That's why I'm throwing it out there And the other thing is obviously Tressway outpunted the offense, but the question isn't that because that's
Steve. If Tressway had missed a ball, he would have outpunted the offense.
The question is, did he double the offensive output?
I'm gonna just say yes. I'm gonna go with it.
The answer is no, but it's closer than you might think.
Okay.
Tressway 8 punts, 420 yards, and Washington had 240 yards total offense.
Okay, so he was one more.
He was close.
One shanked punt short.
Yes. One more punt. If he had one more punt.
One more bad punt though. Like he only needed 30 yards.
Well, no, it was 420. He would have had to have a good punt because he's at 420. That's 60 for math whizzes out there.
Sorry, yeah, I got to double it.
Yeah, so he would have either had to have one really good punt or 2 shank punts. One of the other. So he was pretty close, all things considered, to doubling Washington's offensive out. This is my favorite kind of game. Yes. I love those. I love the trust.
You love games where the stats are just awful, just because you're such a stat head. You love
and not being a fan anymore. I mean, I think it's kind of funny. I know the fans are upset. I did read a little bit of Twitter like Sunday night, I guess.
Sure.
And it was just like apocalyptic.
Oh yeah. I mean, everyone's upset. Understandable. The
Well, here's the
line,
thing, though, Alex. I mean, if you're a fan, you've
right?
put up with a lot,
Sure.
obviously. Ron Rivera was supposed to be the savior. Now, those of us who have clear heads, like you and I do,
Right.
realize Ron Rivera probably never was going to be the savior. But that is what the fans are promised. They've been through these past 3 years have been awful, even by Washington standards.
Mm-hmm.
And the simple fact of the matter is, Ron's teams have gotten progressively worse.
In many ways, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and
in some ways, the receiving core is better. Everyone can point to that. Yes, great, good for you.
yeah, but I'm not even kidding. I mean, I've said on this show before that I think the receiving core will be good, but
Right.
they haven't proven. I mean, they've only played a handful of games, what, 3 games? And so
Sure.
it's not like they're proven. Certainly, it's the strength of the offense. I'll give you that. But
Right.
is this the next coming of the posse or the Smurfs or something? I don't
No.
know. I mean, it's
No.
too early for that. But I do want to talk about. So that's Scott Turner. I think you
All
and I
right.
agree that Turner's ability to adapt sucks. And
Mm-hmm.
and frankly, they should have known their offensive line sucks, and they should have known that the Eagles have a brutal defensive front seven. Because look, did you realize that most of those sacks weren't blitzes? Did you see
Yeah,
that?
there were. I think
They were rushing
of the
four.
9, only I think 7 were on 4-man rushes or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
and it was like Sam Cosmi from
Right.
on the right side looked terrible.
Well,
Uh,
he got injured and had to come back in because they don't have anybody else at one
Yeah,
point. Yeah.
but I mean, but he just got beaten like a
Right.
rag doll, multiple times,
He's
straight
still
up
not
the.
healthy, by the way. We saw his
We're
name
gonna
on
go
the
over
injury
that.
report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll go over that. Leno looked bad on the left
Mm-hmm.
side. They
Mm-hmm.
all just looked atrocious in pass pro. I mean,
The
better in
the
rush.
interior just was letting up every pressure they could.
People don't understand how big losing Chase Ray really was.
I I think obviously, look when it comes to blocking, you don't necessarily always think of the center because a lot of times they're helping out a guard. More often than not, that's kind of their first job. They snap the ball and then they help out a guard. Uh, you know, Fine.
It depends, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of times.
A lot of times on a lot of pass protections, that's what you see. Um, but yeah, man, without him there, they were letting everything through. It was disturb. Like there were snaps where Carson went for the issues we obviously saw with him double pumping in a lot of those sacks and like
Just holding the
he's
ball too long,
holding the
generally.
ball way too
Yeah.
long. There were other ones where like he wasn't even getting back in his drop before he was getting hit.
Yep.
Like and at some point they gotta I don't know what you even do to adjust. My only thought during the game, and I remember tweeting this and some guy trying to argue with me, like I'm also watching the game. I just throw things out there. Like I don't have time to get in an in-depth debate about, X's and O's during a game.
Some rando.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some guy really wanted to argue with me about this. I said, take one of your tight ends, put them in as an H-back and have them help block. It's the only thing I can think of to do in that
In the
situation.
middle of the game, yeah.
Yeah, like what else are you gonna do?
And what else, for that matter, what else are they going to do going forward?
Right, because
Dallas has got a heck of a defensive front, too.
Dallas had
Newsflash.
24 pressures last game versus the Giants. Yeah, and they
They
have
got
a
DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons. I
mhm.
mean,
They have a duo of pass rushers there. That is what we kind of thought we would have, and we don't have right now.
I do want to
Here,
get to that. But to finish the
yes,
offense, Carson Wentz, look,
yeah,
I thought he was pretty good in the first 2 games. There's no doubt he looked terrible
he was good for
against
a
the
game
Eagles.
and a half. He
Yeah,
that
right.
yeah,
But that's a more fair thing to say. He was pretty good for a game and a half. I mean, is he $28 million worth of good? No. I think he's shown, I think you said this last week, Alex. I mean, he's shown that he can be decent in a decent situation,
sure,
right? I mean, you said it a little differently, but that's what you were getting at.
yeah. Roughly speaking, he's an okay quarterback when things are going right. Yes,
I think Ron's going to die on the Carson Wentz hill come hell or high water, though, is what I think.
yeah,
I mean,
I,
it's his guy. He picked him. By the way, Dave wrote a very long set of tweets that he went in depth into. Alex, he texted him to us, remember?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so I'm not going to read all this stuff, but
Right.
I
Dave
know
is
Dave.
out, by the way, this week. He's got a family thing he's obligated to. So
Yeah, but
he'll be back.
he did want us to mention this, and so we'll mention it. The whole point here was I didn't even know this until Dave texted it to me, but I guess Adam Schefter leaked some news like a few minutes before this game started that
Mm-hmm.
Washington really, really, really wanted Jimmy Garoppolo and didn't
Right.
really want
So,
Carson Wentz.
yeah. So that did come out Sunday morning. Is Schefter said he'd heard this way back during the combine that Washington he had heard that Washington had a deal in place for Jimmy Garoppolo, but then Garoppolo had shoulder surgery and the deal fell through. Dave, I'm reading his. Let me see.
You don't need to read that whole
Here's
set. I mean, it's
what
really
Dave
long.
wrote about it. The desperation part, I agree, but where I differ is, well, Jimmy G may have been an option A. That most likely came with an initial approach to drafting a young quarterback too. I do believe that Wilson and Wentz were clearly in their next phase of their plans for Jimmy G. I don't know if I agree with Dave there.
Well, at
Uh,
Dave's macro level point, it's too long to
yeah,
read, but the
yeah,
macro level point that Dave was making was that Washington didn't not want Wentz, and his point is the timeline shows that the nanosecond that the Garoppolo thing fell apart because of shoulder surgery, and like a day later they had a deal for Wentz. And so what he's saying is
yeah.
Washington did want, they might have wanted Jimmy G more, but they did want Wentz, and they had it in place already because
What?
you don't
What?
just make trades in 5 minutes, and that's
Right.
what Dave
Here's
is
the
saying.
thing. Rivera and look, we've talked about this many times, and I've argued this, and I've said it probably 1,000 times in the show. They keep doing the order wrong, so it's never gonna work. And if you don't go GM hires coach, coach drafts quarterback, and if you don't do that all in the first year, or I'll give you 2 years, you're basically gonna screw this up every time. So they didn't do that. Rivera's in year 3. He already needed an established veteran quarterback. He couldn't go for the rookie even though this was a bad rookie class, to put that part aside. Uh, yeah, of course they were going to go for one of these veterans. By the way, Kevin Sheehan, I was listening to his show Monday, and he said his sources within one of the two organizations, he didn't say who, but either it sounds like it was someone in the 49ers organization. They never had a deal in place. He basically called Adam Schefter a liar on his show,
I
saying
mean,
that there was a
there's
discussion, no doubt, but it never
I
got close to
I
a
mean, it
deal.
may be a shade of gray. I mean, they may
Yeah, of
have been
course.
serious farther. They might not have had a formal agreement or even,
Right.
but they were talking. And I mean, you could both of those things could be true at once.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But point is, I do think it's a bit of revisionist history to say, well, Washington never wanted Carson Wentz, and if that's what anybody's saying, I don't agree with that
Yeah,
because
of
they
course
did
not.
trade for him. They did trade for him. They trade for him very quickly. The Zach Wilson thing was never gonna happen ever. That was
Russell
never
Wilson.
realistic. Sorry,
Yes.
Russell Wilson. Yeah,
By the way, given how Russell's played these last two
that's
games, I
probably
don't.
good.
Yeah, I mean, an 11-10 game. How often does that happen in the NFL?
Well, you see, Russell Wilson's a guy who happened to fit perfectly in a situation. So many
Hmm.
quarterbacks are like this. He remember Will Richardson, who was with Washington for 5 minutes. He
Yeah.
kind of alluded to this at his introductory press conference and said something to the effect of, he didn't use these words, but he was saying they never used me right in Seattle. And what he was talking about was that Russell Wilson holds the ball so long, runs all around, looks for
Hmm.
people who are open. It works for him, don't get me wrong, but it's not made for like a precision route running receiver, and that's what Paul Richardson was, or at least
Right.
what he fancied himself. And so I guess what I'm saying is Wilson's ability to succeed was very situational. So you take
Sure.
him and put him in another situation, it's not going to work as well. And there's so many quarterbacks like that. There's only a handful that would go anywhere. Aaron Rodgers, put that dude anywhere, he'd win. But
Sure. Well, I mean,
there's
we see with Tom Brady.
even Tom
Yeah.
Brady. I mean, I don't want to bash Tom. I'm not trying to, but yeah, he's succeeded twice. Just forget me hesitating. Yeah, that's enough.
Well, I mean, I would
He's
understand your
even
hesitation.
situational, though, is my point.
Yeah,
He's not going to win in every system. Aaron Rodgers will win in every system.
sure.
Brady
Tom,
needs a
Tom
specific set of
Brady
circumstances.
Tom Brady excelled most of his career playing in a system
Yeah.
in New England. It was probably not until he got into his mid to late 30s that he got beyond that, honestly.
Yeah. So you take a guy like Russell Wilson, throw him in a new city, new system, new
Hmm.
players, new coach. It doesn't not surprising. So, but back to Washington. So Wentz, I mean, look, the pitchforks are going to come out. Not that the team cares, but the pitchforks are going to come out if they have another game like this against Washington.
I mean,
Wentz
Steve,
does have to
people have
get
already
better.
emptied their woodsheds. Well, I'll put it that way.
Yeah. They're already collecting. They're already collecting.
Yeah.
Weapons. Somebody's got to sit down with Carson and say, look, you got to get rid of the ball sooner. Number one, get rid of the ball sooner. Don't be afraid to use your outlet valve,
Yeah.
for God's sakes. If Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence are coming at you, don't pump fake.
No. No. I mean, well, so here's my issue or my question, and I don't know this, and you probably wouldn't know it either because we're not in the locker room necessarily. What's he being told to look for on these plays is the $1,000 question. Because
Oh yeah.
if he's told, hey, your first read is the deep guy, your second read is this guy who's also deep, and the third read's going to be a guy at the mid, like who's 10 yards downfield, and he's your dump off guy. He's not going to have time to get to that third guy in most of these situations now
I
because
mean,
they don't
there's
have a
some
line for that.
plays that there's just hot reads and you go, but it
Right.
didn't look like that's really what he was doing for most of these plays. He was trying to progress through his reads, and that's normally good. But if you got four Eagles coming right at you,
Mm-hmm.
you got to dump the ball off. And again, I mean, you're so right in the Scott Turner stuff. I mean, he's just not doing the team any favors at all.
No. I mean, look, I
Bring
know
North
the Air
back.
Coryell system is kind of where he comes from, and it's all about play action and deep balls, right? Like that's we've gotten very used to. We had 10 years of West Coast guys here with Shanahan and Jay Gruden, guys who understood short passing routes. I mean, Jay was a very vertical heavy guy, but obviously he had some West Coast influence to his
He had a
game.
lot of West Coast influence.
Absolutely. Jay's was an interesting offense in that I think he wanted to be a vertical guy, but he knew it just can't work all the time.
He
Whereas
was
Shanahan
definitely a passing
absolutely
guy.
Shanahan came from the Bill Walsh system, right? Like he worked under Walsh, so of course he's a West Coast guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So, but the other
yeah,
thing is, like, Carson made a bunch of terrible passes.
he did.
A lot of those,
Well,
I
even in the
think he
second
got.
half, he was just totally fried.
Oh, he was, and I
Yeah.
think that all the pass rush rattled him because he just that was a terrible game. I mean, that's a throw it in the trash can kind of game for
Yeah.
him, I think. So, but he's got. We'll get to Dallas later, but I just wanted to. I don't know what else to say about it.
It was a mess. The defense, I don't even blame the defense for poor play at this point. Like your defense is not going to play well when your offense is this bad.
Well, yeah, yes, I'm not disagreeing with you in any way. What's going through my head about the defense is how incredibly disappointing and how what an incredibly underperforming bunch this is. If you think
Sure.
about what this team, I think about what Washington has put into this defense, four
Hmm.
number one draft picks, two big money corners. They've totally ignored linebackers.
Right.
But though that group, the defensive line drastically underperformed. Has for 2 years, I think.
Hmm.
They don't get the pressure for all these pass rushers they supposedly have. They don't get the pressure. Chase Young's not even there, and he was disappointing last year. And I don't need to
Right. Right.
harp
Right.
on that. It's just very disappointing. And then you pay big money to William Jackson and Kendall Fuller. Now Kendall Fuller had some good plays against the Eagles. He
He
really
also got
did.
beat a lot though.
He did. He got beat and he made some good plays. I just continue to believe that Kendall Fuller is a slot corner. I
Yeah.
don't know why they don't play him in a slot and move St. Juste, who's a terrible slot corner,
But
out on the
St. Juice
outside.
had an outstanding game playing outside this week or last week. He broke up at least 3 passes. Which that's a good day for any corner.
Well, and that was only because William Jackson wasn't there, though.
Right. But if Jackson's back this week, if they move St. Juste back inside, it's just idiotic. Like
I agree.
you've clearly seen he's an outside corner. He's a big man. He shouldn't be playing inside.
It doesn't take a genius to know this.
No. This is something 90% of the fan base knows. Maybe even more, honestly. We all know Kendall Fuller's a better slot guy and St. Juste is better outside. Just embrace it. I don't care what they're getting paid. If I'm paying you $10 million, you do what I tell you. That's my response to Fuller if he complains,
Oh, absolutely, sure. Yeah. Don't forget, Kendall Fuller kind of busted out of Kansas City. That's why he's back here in the first place.
Yeah.
They tried everything with Kendall Fuller, corner or safety. It just didn't work. So it may just be that he's just not as good as you would hope. I mean, he's a native Washingtonian from a football perspective, drafted here.
Yeah,
good for him.
Played in Virginia Tech.
Yeah, so he's a local kid. I mean, it's better than saying native, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
So maybe he just needs to go.
Yeah, I don't know. The mishandling of this defense, and you know what's really the kick in the teeth? Just how little depth they have. The fact that, all right, Jackson was out and you played some random dude who has played one NFL game. And, like, that was your depth plan at cornerback. You grabbed a guy off the practice squad.
Wild goose.
Yeah.
I knew he wasn't actually on the practice squad, I don't believe. I mean, I knew about Wild Goose because I have my chart.
Right.
I would bet you a guess that 90-something% of the fans probably had never heard of him.
No, they did. I mean, I know he played in our preseason games, but yeah, most fans probably didn't even know that. Yeah.
So, I mean, we've already said everything we need to say about the linebackers. It's just a disaster.
It's a joke. Yes.
Yeah. So I think of all the things on the field things with this team, the biggest sin, because look, they tried on offense. It's not really working. Bad coaching. And I agree. Last week I argued against the coaching thing. It's the players are underperforming, but the coaching's bad. But it's the defense that I would be really mad about if I was the front office guy with this team, considering the enormous amount of resource they put into it.
I can understand why you'd think that if you were a front office guy, but here's the thing, Steve. The guy at the top of the front office is also the head coach.
That's the problem.
Bingo.
Yes. So don't forget, Alex knows this, but don't forget, for as sainted as Joe Gibbs is, and we deify him ourselves. Alex and I love Joe Gibbs.
Yeah.
But don't forget how it worked. Okay? Never forget that in Gibbs 1, Bobby Beathard was the personnel guy, and Beathard did force players on Gibbs.
Absolutely. They had times where they butted heads, and they're very well documented in any documentary, any story you ever hear about the team. They liked each other. I think they got along very well by and large, but there are definite times where they butted heads.
Yeah,
and there are also times where Joe Gibbs would go to Beathard and say, I need Doug Williams because I need a good backup quarterback.
Yeah.
And it would happen.
Yeah, they had a system. It's not a case of Joe Gibbs running everything. In Gibbs 2, that was the case. And guess what? It was not as successful. And granted, Dan Snyder was the owner, and it was never going to work. All that, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't as successful. I just don't – there aren't too many cases. There are some, but there's not a ton of cases which one guy is running everything and it works consistently. Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Bill Parcells, there's a handful of others. I'm talking modern era.
I mean, in the modern era, I don't know if you could even say Andy Reid because he's had GMs there. I mean, it's the Andy Reid show, though. Let's be honest. A lot of the Andy.
I would probably throw him into that boat.
Yeah, I'd put him in that list. Would you put even Mike Holmgren in that list? I mean, he had Wolf back in Green Bay where he was really successful.
I don't think so because Green Bay had GMs.
Yeah, Green Bay had some very good GMs, honestly.
They did. So point is, Ron Rivera wasn't, and won't be in that category.
No, it's very. I can't think of any coach right now who I would expect to be able to pull it off.
No, and I also think that Ron has done a terrible job in free agency.
Oh, absolutely.
Drafts a little bit. The drafts haven't been terrible. In this year's draft looks like they have obviously Dotson,
Yeah.
is a winner and all that. So that's one. But he's been in the plan has been awful in free agency. The
Mm-hmm.
plan is we're not doing anything. That's the plan. We're going to make some minor moves around the edges.
I mean, I've heard fans murmuring about this, and a few of the people in the press have kind of hinted at. Does this team have money? Like, are they kind of on the broke side, and that's why they're
No,
not being as active?
no, 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 no. So the finances, don't forget the NFL, it's communism, okay? Like Karl Marx communism. It's a
Well,
collective.
I'm
It
gonna
is a
let you finish, but I'm gonna give you the counterpoint to it.
Okay, go
That's fine.
okay.
Yeah.
But it's not like baseball where revenue isn't shared. That's why like the Tampa Bay Rays are broke and the
Hmm.
Marlins are broke. Um the TV money is enormous. Every team has the ability to spend up to the cap. Every team. Now, certainly there are some teams that are richer, like Dallas. Jerry Jones has perfected marketing and all that. They have more money,
Sure.
but every team can spend up to the cap and fulfill that. They are all making a lot of money.
So I agree with that in principle of how the cap works. The counterpoint part of this theory is if you want to hire a big name free agent and you're gonna have to give him a big bonus, you have to have that bonus cash and put it in escrow right away.
Yes, you do.
Does this team have that much cash liquid to do that part
It's
for
not
anybody?
necessarily cash. You can have a revolving line of credit. You don't
Okay, so I
necessarily
guess you
have
could
to
do it
have.
on credit. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not just that. And to answer your question, if they don't have cash, that means Dan Snyder's mismanaging the team
Sure.
because they
And what's
should
your
have
point?
cash. No, maybe he is. I mean, yeah, it could easily be, but I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I just get the sense it's not really money. I get the sense it's more Ron Rivera.
I mean, I get the sense it's partly that. I also would it shock you if, hey, the reason we can't get a better linebacker, Steve, the top guys just don't want to come here anymore.
Well, I'm glad you went there because there's that. I mean, Washington has a terrible reputation. It's
Right.
destroyed its fan base. It ran me off. It ran. And by the way,
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to pull up our buddy Rick Snyder's video this morning. Did you see it?
Which one was this morning's? I watched
This
most
was
of them.
one where he was sarcastically going after the fans who abandoned the team.
Oh, I did not see that one. No.
Yeah, he was. I mean, it was sarcasm,
Right.
But I mean, he's basically saying all you guys who are Washingtonians are stuck with the team because you're
Eh,
from here, and And I was thinking, well, I'm not stuck. I don't live there, and I'm not from
right.
there. But anyway, I lost my own train of thought here.
It's okay. That's kind of what the show does.
We're
Um.
rambling.
Hey. So we talked about it briefly, but one thing that
Oh no, I remember what I was
okay,
going
you
to
go
say.
ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah. So yes, free agents don't want to come to Washington. That's been well documented for years. The other thing for you fire Ron Rivera crowd, who in the God's green earth would ever want to come to Washington to
Yep.
coach? Seriously, you got an owner that's a disaster, who's in
Mm-hmm.
trouble. Ron Rivera came in, strong coach, strong personality. If you just fire him, you're going to get like the defensive coordinator from Southeast South Dakota State.
Right.
You're not going to get a no good coach is going to come to Washington. Zero. So
Right.
you're kind of stuck. That's what I was trying to say, but go ahead.
Oh no, no, I think you're absolutely right there. So one random thing, we talked briefly about the whole news story that came out, didn't we, with Dan Snyder?
Which
Did we
one?
touch on that or
There's
did
been
we
a
not?
few news stories over
Okay, so the latest thing is the Post apparently talked to a couple other owners anonymously.
we did
And
not do this. Go ahead.
oh, okay, yeah, we talked about the plane,
Yeah.
not this part. So apparently, some owners said to the Post, someone needs to go to Dan Snyder and tell him to sell this team already. One of them.
Sounds like something somebody on the hog side has been saying for
I mean, I think
2
it sounds like
years.
something everyone on the
Yes.
every host of this show ever has said this at least once.
Absolutely.
At least once, and probably at least 10 times. But anyway, it feels like this story just comes up every 2 months. Like they talk to some owners and they say, "Yeah, we should tell Dan to sell," and then they don't tell him to sell. But Here's my question: when will if the owners are finally faced, the other owners, with you tell Dan to sell, or that you're going to lose your team in the capital of the United States, will they finally talk to him? Because they haven't talked to him so far, clearly.
Certainly in modern times, the only owner they've really done that to is Jerry Richardson.
And that was very behind the scenes, let's be honest.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. But what caused them to do that? Very public misconduct in the office.
Right.
Dan hasn't done that. Dan's been a total turd. He is a turd. All of that. The other thing, though, remember, and this is stuff like Schefter has reported. It's not me making this up. Jerry Jones is one of his buddies. Jerry Jones is a supporter. Jerry Jones is the most powerful owner in the NFL. Yep. As much as Washington fans don't want to admit that, it's the truth. Jerry Jones is almost the shadow commissioner. He's got a ton of influence. He's made the owners more money than any other owner. Jerry Jones is the guy who pioneered all this local all these local sponsorship revenue.
Right.
So if Jerry Jones does not want Dan to go, my guess is that Dan does not go. So I think there's your biggest hang up. But I think that they will try to ride this out unless something else comes up that's like Dan said the N-word, Dan grabbed a boob, something like that, then that would cause them, they'd have to go.
I mean,
and Dan's never been accused of racism, but I'm just saying like that.
But he has been accused now multiple times of sexual misconduct.
But it's been vague. There's been no video, no photos. There's been no like hook.
No hard evidence. Yes.
No. It's or even like something that's captured the general public's attention. It just hasn't happened.
Sure. I understand what you're saying there, but I'm starting to see it. I think this is going to come down to, at some point, they won't be able to get a stadium here.
They can't already get a stadium here.
No, but I mean, like 4 years down the road, they won't have a stadium.
Well, look, I do think that if Dan wasn't a complete turd, and please credentials for training camp, I do think the state of Virginia probably would have ended up. At least been able to cut a deal. They might not have spent $800 million, but there would have been a deal to cut. Same with Maryland. But I do think it struck me as something that's personal. We don't want to be associated with such a scumbag.
I think it's 100% personal at this point.
Absolutely. And so that alone is keeping the state. Because notice the talk totally disappeared. It was all revved up for a while. They were negotiating, and then it just, both Maryland and Virginia went, no. And then it's just over. And D.C., I mean, that's a whole lost cause. Yeah. So, I think it is Dan already.
Yeah. Like, so if 2028 comes around and they don't have a stadium here and they're suddenly talking about leaving the city or the metro area even, does that even force the owners to say this is a big, like, losing a franchise in your nation's capital is a big black eye. Let's be honest. Not only
that, but the franchise that, if you want to consider, I consider the Commanders an expansion team, but the NFL doesn't. The NFL looks at it as whatever we have to, 80 years, 90 years.
This 90. Is the 90th anniversary.
If it was hockey, it would be one of the original 6.
Yes.
The NFL would be horrified at losing one of its oldest teams that has been in Washington since the 1930s.
Right.
1932, I believe.
No, that's 1937 is when they moved here.
Okay, 37. Yeah. So I do think the NFL would be horrified. Now, I mean, Washington could keep playing in its own state, in its stadium, FedEx, for a while. In theory, they had to.
I guess, yeah. But I just, when I look at that to me is what might actually move some of these other owners to act.
I don't know, though. I don't know if they care, the other owners care that much. And I do think that these owners are, I'm not talking about politics here, are conservative in the way they operate, conservative in the way they view themselves. In that a lot of these, look, there's other sleazy owners out there, Dan may be one of the sleazies, but there's other sleazy owners
Of the
that have.
31 owners, I would say 31 are probably a little sleazy at some level of sleaziness.
Yeah,
If
I
they're
mean, you don't get to be a billionaire without stepping on a few toes. So
right,
most of them are at some level sleazy, and
right,
most of them do not want
right.
this bad coming back at them. Even Jerry Jones has had bad come out. He just
Sure.
squashes it. He's just really good at just crushing it ruthlessly. He's
Hmm.
this year had accusations of sexual misconduct by him. Did it go anywhere? No, because he just crushed it.
No.
And that kind of thing's happened before. He's tinkered with bimbos and bars and all
Yeah, either
kinds of
breaks out
stuff.
the checkbook
Yeah, or
or yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah. Of
Dan
course.
just lacks the ability to do that.
Right. Right.
So all that is to say, it may come to that, but personally,
Mhm.
I think it's going to take more than what we've had. I think if it was going to happen, it would have already happened by now. They're going to need another shoe to drop to get rid of him.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Unfortunately, I think that's probably right.
Because we're kind of
And
over it now, right? I mean, all the stuff happened with Congress and all that stupid committee and all that. But the hearings happened. He testified. There were
the
no leaks whatsoever.
the only thing
And it's
that's
over.
left is the Mary Jo White thing, the investigation into him supposedly embezzling money and hiding it from the revenue
See,
sharing.
that's the thing. If
Sure.
they can conclude that Dan really was embezzling money
Hmm.
from the other owners, that
Right.
might be the other shoe. But if
Right.
but if he can just say, hey, we certainly didn't have any intent. We mixed up a few ticket revenue streams or whatever. Sorry, and here we're going to pay it back.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
but if
And
he's
of course,
like,
I think the number matters. Like, and we'll probably never know what the actual number
right,
is,
no,
but
we won't.
if it's, hey, it's under $1 million, they'll
But if
probably
he's
know.
like, the kid is stealing drug money from his mom's wallet,
Right.
and that's, I mean, it's one of my crazy analogies.
I
You
know,
know
I
what I'm
get you.
saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we all know.
yeah.
Sorry, that was just that was on my sheet, and I don't think we had
Listen,
talked
what are
about
we
it.
going to do? Talk about,
Yeah,
the Eagles or
getting our ass
Dallas?
kicked by Dallas
Yeah.
next week. Yeah. Um, but they're gonna wear the black uniforms and get their ass kicked. That'll be nice.
I don't. Is there? I mean, I'm not a fan anymore. I mean, are
Yeah.
there fans that actually support black and yellow Steelers uniforms?
There is. I don't think they care for the yellow, but look. There's been a segment of the fan base who's wanted a black uniform going back 20 years. It's
Because isn't it
ridiculous.
just like the Walmart version of Steelers
It
uniforms,
is. It
basically?
really is. It is. It's the Walmart Steelers uniform with slightly camoed sleeves. I,
And there's
I
like, is there a tinge of red somewhere and
no
numbers? Just
red outline of the numbers technically.
well,
Yeah,
who designed that? Thought, gee, that's a good idea for the
Nike.
burgundy and gold
Yeah.
Washington team.
I mean, here's the thing, and I hate people are gonna be insulted by this. This is the ultimate redneck uniform. You made a black uniform when black's not a team color, and then you added camo to it. This is what you would, it's very rednecky.
Let's go
So
deer hunting.
yeah, this is a deer hunting uniform. Get over it. Like that's gonna offend a lot of you. Get over it.
I just, it really turned me off when I was trying to decide, do I
Yeah,
still
yeah,
feel something for this team? Or it's like, are you trying to decide if you're going to break up with your girlfriend? Do I
sure.
want to keep her around? Do I really feel something for her anymore? And at some point you just go, it's just over. And
Yeah.
that's what it was for me. But the black and yellow uniforms was one of the things that pushed me in that direction. It really was.
Yeah, I can understand. I I still think the white uniform's worse, but that's just me being a uniform nerd.
Well, I don't like all white either. That's not
Yeah, I
those.
know.
That's white is not a primary color either.
No, no,
You need to have one of the primary colors as either jersey or pants.
sure. And luckily they've kind of realized that, and they wear the burgundy pants all the time.
Except this week, I guess they're going the
All
Steelers.
black. Yeah,
Yeah, going
yeah.
Steelers.
Oh, but so we didn't do game balls yet. I guess we
Oh
should
God,
briefly talk about how badly they're going to get there. They're just going to get beaten.
I
Cooper
love
Rush
giving game
looks
balls.
strangely good as like he another like just Jerry Jones lucks into quarterbacks kind of thing.
Cooper Rush? No, Cooper Rush isn't that good.
No.
I love giving game balls. You know I do.
Okay. All right. Can I go first? Because
Yes, please.
I've
Absolutely.
got mine listed from the game. This is
Okay.
what I wrote down. I'm going to go defense first. Benjamin St. Juste had a great game.
Okay.
Very good game. He should be starting out on the outside from here on out. And if they don't do that, then they couldn't just fire anybody who made that decision. I'm fine with that. Next guy on offense, DaRon Payne, because he got the first 2 points of the game.
He got the points? That's a good one. I like that. That's creative right there, DaRon Payne.
It's your cynicism, but I still stuck with a Washington player.
Yeah, you did. I mean, for me, Jalen Hurts has to get the game ball. 22 of 35, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. Quarterback rating 123.5. He tore that team up. He's gotten a lot better from what he was when I watched his film. I watched his film tangentially because I watched all of Cam Sims' Alabama film, and Jalen was terrible back then. So anyway, Jalen Hurts, good for you, buddy. And then on defense, man, that's tough. I was honestly going to go to St. Juste also because I did think he had a good game. He's maybe the only one that had a good game.
Sure.
So Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
And Benjamin St. Juste.
Okay. All right. We'll stick with those. As I don't know if you've noticed, I'm putting that in our thread. I'm not tracking.
I have noticed that.
Yeah,
no,
but I'm putting it in the thread. So.
Yeah.
All right. What do we want to talk about with Dallas? We're just gonna get our ass beat and just move on.
Okay. So here's the question.
All right.
Can Cooper Rush do enough to keep Dallas on the right track? That's the question. So just as a bit of history, so in case you guys didn't watch the game, Dallas won this game 23-16 against the Giants last week. Sorry, and then they won against the Bengals 20-17. Those aren't tremendous offensive outputs, and the Dallas Giants game was 6-3 or something. At halftime. Yeah, at halftime it was 6-3. This is not a Dallas juggernaut, and if you look at guys like the running game, this is not the Zeke Elliott. Of course, now my internet's frozen. I was going to tell you what Zeke had, but they do have Tony Pollard is a better. There it goes. Tony Pollard is almost a better running back than Zeke now.
Oh, he absolutely is a better running back at this point. Yeah.
And so there's that. But then you had guys like CeeDee Lamb dropped one of the worst professional football drops I've ever seen. Terrible. So they have talent on offense, but I don't think this is the greatest show on turf or anything either. So can Cooper Rush look like an NFL quarterback? I don't know if he can. So I do think if a miracle happens and Washington's defensive line decides to look like what everybody thought they would be, they could have a chance.
I mean,
I'm trying to be positive.
I mean, just looking at their overall stat line, they had 215 passing yards last week and 176 rushing yards. It's a run-first team, no doubt about that.
Yeah, that's my point. It's Cooper Rush, Dak Prescott, I have a lot of respect for as a player. Cooper Rush is a backup for a reason. Oh, yeah.
He's a backup for a reason. But, I mean, he had some very good throws through that game.
And he wasn't terrible. He didn't throw any interceptions. He was 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Quarterback rating 98.2.
That's exactly what you want from a backup. Yeah. Manage the game. Don't be completely one-dimensional and have to run every time.
But it's not John Elway. And these two running backs, while good, have not been great.
My counter to all that would be they have 2 good running backs. They have a good receiving core, even though I know they're banged up. They have a very good offensive line. The thing that helps Cooper Rush the most is that the other players out there with him, it's a good roster out there with him. And that just you could probably put any quarterback in that situation and they would be okay. Maybe not great, but they'd be okay.
And I gotta correct myself. Tony Pollard was great last week. I didn't realize. You looking at his stats again, he had 8.1 yards per carry.
Yeah, so, I don't have their box score up in front of
me. I do. I mean, he was 13 for 105. Now, he had one 46-yard run. And so then that puts him at, if you take that away, 12 for 59, which is still good, which is 4.9 yards per carry. So Tony Pollard was outstanding. So forget I said that.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
and Elliott
Washington
had
is
73 yards still,
yeah.
which is effective.
Yeah, and Washington hasn't been very good against the run either, by the
No, and
way.
especially against quicker guys like Pollard. I think Washington's defensive line is designed to go against a guy like Ezekiel Elliott. He's a strong power runner first, right? Like Washington can handle that better than these quick guys who can get past them because
I
they don't
mean,
have a second tier.
Washington defense is currently allowing rushes of an average of 5.4 yards per attempt, which is tied for 30th in the NFL.
I'm surprised we're only 30th.
Tennessee Titans 5.8, Houston Texans, which are terrible, at 5.6.
The Titans surprisingly have fallen off, by the way, this
Yeah,
year.
they have.
Yeah. Unexpected, honestly. Yeah, I mean, look, the offense probably should scare you less than Phillies, but by no means, can you take them lightly in this one?
No, because also, I mean, Dallas's tight ends seem to do a number on Washington every time for some reason.
Oh, sure. Well, they also had like back-to-back Hall of Fame tight ends for a while.
They did, yeah. Granted, yeah. I mean, certainly they did.
Yeah, that plays into it too. The other question, of course, can be that defense. We talked about that defensive line of theirs, but we didn't really talk about. They have a pretty highly popular secondary. With Diggs especially being. Didn't he lead the NFL last year in interceptions? Am I right?
I think he did. Yes.
Yeah. I know he gives up a lot of yards, but he gets a lot of picks, and
he's also gotten the best of Terry McLaurin in the past.
Yeah, that's true. And Carson Wentz does like to throw an interception or two, from what I've seen. So.
I mean, Carson's problem more is that he just looked very uncomfortable last week. He's got it's one of my keys to this game. Here's what I have for keys to the game. Offensive line needs to look better than hot garbage in pass protection.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do that, but to win, that's going to have to happen.
Oh, we didn't talk about the fact that 3 of them are injured.
Yeah, well, I'm going to get to that.
Yeah.
And then the second one, Scott Turner needs to situationally adapt his play calling.
Mm-hmm.
And then the secondary needs to find a way to not be terrible. Against this team in particular. Yes. So in terms of injury report, we do have that for you guys, of course. And this is as of Wednesday night. Charles Leno, DNP, shoulder. Wes Schweitzer, concussion, DNP, which means he's probably out.
Right.
I'll get to that. Sadiq Charles, so limited guys. Sadiq Charles, Sam Cosmi, Milo Eifler, James Smith-Williams, Benjamin St. Juste, Casey Toohill, Daniel Wise, and then guys injured who practice fully, William Jackson, David Mayo. So Schweitzer in the concussion. So the concussion protocol is this. You have to get cleared by an independent physician to come back to practice. Then you have to practice and then go back and get cleared again for the game by another independent physician. So just logistically, it's very unlikely that happens in 1 week.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, and it has happened, but it is more likely than not that it won't. And so they will be down to like Dave Earl as the center.
Yeah. No. They had the center mentioned. I saw in a tweet, and I'm trying to find who it was. The fun part is it's whoever Carson Wentz used as center when he played in the college game before his draft. The showcase game, whatever that was, Senior Bowl or something that. Yeah. So, they're already onto their third center, which is just fantastic.
Want to hear some random bad news?
Oh, good.
Because I pulled up Twitter trying to find what you were talking about. The lead thing here, rapper Coolio died 54 minutes ago, age 59 years old.
That's way too young.
Yeah. Sorry to Coolio and his family. And for those of you who are fans, our condolences.
Yeah. That's just
He goes
terrible.
to the gangster's paradise in the sky.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good song, too.
It wasn't a very good movie, but it was a good song.
Fantastic song, yes.
Anyway, I didn't mean to bring news.
Just throwing it out there. That's what we do.
So anyway, point is, that's to me, those are the 3 things that have to happen. The offensive line needs to find a way, one way or the other. Scott Turner needs to be better, and there's no hope for the linebacker court's over. But if Washington allows CeeDee Lamb, and some of these other receivers to go crazy, it's going to be a blowout.
Oh, I think the center's Nicky Martin is who it is.
Nick Martin, yeah. They just signed him last week, by the way.
Yep. So that's probably
doesn't bode well, does it? Does that bode well? No.
Well, at least he was a starting center at one point in his career, I believe, because he was drafted in the second round in 2016.
Is he really a second round pick?
Yeah, second round, 50th pick overall by the Houston Texans. So
I didn't remember him being second round, but regardless, I mean, that doesn't bode well.
It doesn't bode well, but at least he's got some experience. That helps.
At least the man has played football.
Right. They didn't actually get Dave Earl to be his center.
Yeah.
Also, Dave's not a big guy. He's pretty thin looking.
He's not tall. I know that much.
Oh no. Oh, okay. Yeah.
We've never met Dave in person. We've only met Dave electronically.
Right. We actually have no idea how tall he is.
No. I've never met you in person. After all these years, we've never met in person.
The only guy I've ever met was Robbie.
You met Jamal too.
Well,
didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I ran into Jamal once.
You had to deliver. We had some business stuff. You had to.
Yeah. I did have to do that. Yeah. But I might like hang out with.
So
Robbie and Sean and I went out to a baseball game once. That's it.
Right. So DeMarcus Lawrence.
How's he still around, man? He's been around.
I don't know, but what I did see him is torch the Giants' right tackle multiple times last week.
Yeah.
So Sam Cosmi's hurt. That means
Not
Cornelius Lucas would be out there if Sam Cosmi can't go. Neither one of them are exactly John Jansen. Anyway.
No. Sam Cosmi is a run blocker first. He's not a pass blocker.
And he's young and he's going to get better, but that was a bad matchup no matter what, especially if it's Cornelius Lucas. It's not a good game.
No. Run the ball as much as you can. Just keep running. Get this game over as fast as possible.
Well, you got to focus on the run game because pass pro is going to be a disaster. Short outs. I mean, what we've been talking about, that needs to be the game plan.
Yeah. Will Scott Turner make any adjustments? That Steve, what happens if they go another game and it's 0 points in the first half again? I don't even care about what the other team scores. I'm just saying, let's say they get shut out for another first half.
Well,
which I don't know if that's ever happened.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, are you talking about what happens with the team or with the fans? The fans are going to go crazy.
Oh, the fans will go. At what point does crazy old Dan Snyder come in with a giant gallon bucket of ice cream and like put it on? Not even on desk. He's going to like just smear it on Scott Turner's face.
Dan's got bigger problems, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
Dan hasn't. There's a reason Dan hadn't been around.
Oh, I know.
Tanya's not that petty, so.
No. They should be very happy that Dan is not that involved, because I think if he were not under all these, spotlights.
There'd be ice cream all over the place.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be vanilla. It would be chocolate ice cream, and it's not actually chocolate. It's something else.
Maybe, yeah. We're just going to go full on Amber Heard in the bed.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think that's where he would be at this point.
Probably.
Yeah.
But please credentials for training.
That's just becoming a mantra. Like after we.
I think we've honestly been fair. I've been extremely critical, me in particular, of Dan Snyder, but you have too. But I don't think it's ever been unfair, and I don't think we've ever been disrespectful. Now we are, but I don't think we've ever been disrespectful to him.
We're also mostly just making jokes.
Yes.
Like mostly.
I'm the one that's written serious and sometimes sarcastic columns about it.
Right.
But it was always accurate and not unfair.
Right. Except for the time where I think you claimed he came from another planet to invade us all and make our lives miserable. But
I don't recall quite doing that, but
yeah. All right, guys. I don't know. Do we have anything else to? I
We
guess
have
we
to
got to do.
make up game prediction.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, can I predict like 52 to nothing? Um,
Go ahead. Yeah, predict
I
whatever
think
you
this
want.
game, I do think it's going to be a blowout. I've always been leery of predicting blowouts in NFC East games because sometimes they have a way of becoming hard fought battles.
Mm-hmm.
But this team is just like a train wreck, and I haven't been watching too much of like Ron's press conference or everything like he used to. But I haven't seen anything in our comment
Well, he
section
was
or anything.
very mad in the last post game press conference about the Carson Wentz story. He spent most of it yelling about how it was unfair to Carson Wentz to have that story come out.
And I mean, I think he gave his offensive line a stern talking to. That was the other point I saw.
Yes, I saw he sat in on some meetings. Is
That's
what he
certainly
said.
gonna do the trick.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't. I just have to think Washington would be better a little bit because it's hard to get worse than what we saw last week. So I'm gonna say, and I don't think Dallas is that good with Cooper Rush in there. So I'm gonna say Dallas victory, of course, but something like maybe 24-17.
Okay. Um, I honestly I think Ron might be giving up, and I don't he won't say it, but he strikes me as a guy who's tired now.
Washington
Uh,
is the place where football careers come to die.
it is. I I don't think it's a blowout, but I think that the dark side of this thing keeps on getting darker. I'm gonna say Washington loses this thing something like 17-3.
You
Like
know
they don't
what?
score a touchdown.
Yeah, you might be right. I was again, it's my bias towards usually NFC East games are tough, which isn't really true, but that's what's in my head. Is that here's what we can end on. If Washington gets blown out on Sunday, is the
Hmm.
season already over for them effectively? If they go 1-4 with two blowout NFC losses,
Well, they'd be 1-3, but
1-3, sorry,
yeah,
was the season already over and they don't even get out of October, get
I
into
think
October?
with this fan base where they're at, the fan base is on the ropes, and I don't think Jason Wright and Ron Rivera, all their biggest flaws, they've never quite understood how on the ropes the fan base has been with all this. Like I
No,
think they know it's bad. I don't think they've ever understood how bad things are for all their
I
talking to
think so.
people
Yeah, I think you're right.
and yeah, if we get embarrassed again, it might be you might see a drop off in attendance and all this stuff, uh, the likes of which they've never had before.
Because it also already looked like last week, from what I saw, it looked like at least half were Eagles fans.
Most people are saying is about that, yeah. So I've heard some say 60-40 Eagles fans, but the stadium was full, which is an unusual thing. Um,
Well, and they
but
say who's their next home game? Do you know off the top?
Tennessee, I'm not.
Tennessee.
Yep.
So that's not going to be a big travel game. So
Nope.
if they get blown out by Dallas, there's going to be like five people in the stadium.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's what happens. If this thing goes off the rails this early in the season, this whole like new franchise expansion team, however you want to look at it, it's going to tank like it's never tanked before. Because now you've lost the old school fans, and you've already alienated your new fan base.
I'm not laughing at that. What I'm laughing at is I pulled up our Hogsty website, our schedule to look at it.
Yeah.
The ad in the middle of the page says Lily from ATT bears all. Like what? And this is Google doing this, by the way. We
Yeah. We don't
subscribe to Google.
control those ads.
Yeah, it's like what kind of advertisement is this? And who is Lily? Lily's the girl in the commercial AT&T commercials.
Yeah.
Where is she
Yeah.
bearing all, and why is this in an advertisement?
Well, look, we all have to do things to make money in the
I
entertainment
guess
world.
so. Sorry, that
Uh,
was just a total off
yeah.
the non sequitur.
Yeah. Uh, you want a random one? You've seen. Oh wait, you've never seen The Office, right?
No, I never have.
Oh, okay, never mind. Then I won't even go into it.
That would
This
be
whole
even
thing.
far more random for
Yeah,
me
yeah.
in that case.
Yep, yep, yep. It wouldn't. It would make no sense to you. All right. One of the actresses in The Office was a burlesque dancer. I'll just put it that way.
Oh,
At one
okay.
point, and
Yeah,
it's
that would.
the last one you'd expect.
Okay, it would be meaningless to me. You're right.
Yes. Um. All right. That should wrap up the show. Let's just say that. You know. Uh.
We hate to
Steve.
be
Steve
so
wants to talk
negative.
about scandalous commercial women, and we're done.
On our website.
On our website. They're scandalous. Yeah.
Bearing all.
Yeah. I've seen that ad too other places. I think I've seen it on Twitter even. It's just one of those like clickbait websites.
Oh, it is. Just so a plug. So Rick Snyder has his
show, yep.
Seasons of Discontent that has been going on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yep. It'll be up before this show, so just click back one if you're on our site.
Yeah, and then It's Just Business is on Wednesdays, every other Wednesday, so you can go back and listen to that. And this week we talked about Amazon ratings. We did an athletes and coaches and owners behaving badly. It's great stuff. So
I'm shocked. People are behaving badly again.
Robert Sarver got run right out the heck out of the NBA in 2 seconds. That was what we talked. That was the original one.
Yeah.
There's a lesson for you, NFL.
Yeah, that if someone's a pain, you should just get rid of them.
They didn't hesitate to get rid of him.
Oh, I mean, I think they learned that from Sterling, right? Like they learned the hard way that time. Yeah. All right, guys, that takes care of this week's episode. We will talk to you again after we get our asses beaten by Dallas, and we'll get ready to get our asses beaten by Tennessee, because that's the name of the game these days.
Bye.
Later.